The opposition spokesman for financial services and gaming, Roy Clinton, is live in the studio tonight. Good evening, Mr. Clinton.
Good evening.
Now, you call the government response underwhelming. You say optimism expressed has been misplaced. All deadlines have expired. The reality is no government wants to be on a grey list. So what's the point you're trying to make there?
Well, the point I'm trying to make is that the government's had 1 year in which to get us off the grey list. We have been supportive of the government all along. What I just find a bit unnerving is that when the announcement was made on Friday, the government only issued a 10-line press release with no indication as to what the next steps were going to be to get us off the grey list. They haven't even pointed out that the next window of opportunity is in fact October later this year.
That's in their latest release. Now, you say there's been little from government since the announcement on Friday. The government insists it's been privately briefing the GST throughout. Have those briefings not been taking place? Was this something you saw coming, perhaps?
Well, again, look, we said back in June 2022 that of all the points FATF had raised, the one about confiscation orders was probably going to be the most problematic because, of course, there's a judicial process which is outside necessary political control.
And we recognise that.
We recognised that a year ago. So if we recognised it a year ago, so would the government. Now, the question is there anything more the government could have done in terms of additional laws, more resources for the police to investigate? These are additional things the government perhaps could have done. And we've seen the case of the Caymans, which has come off, or will be coming off the list, having satisfied the action points. So is there anything more that Gibraltar could have done? I mean, the time has expired. I know the minister's expressed optimism, and we relied on that optimism. And in terms of briefings, I mean, it depends how you define a briefing, whether it's a 5-minute conversation by the coffee machine. I certainly haven't had no detailed sit-down discussions with the minister.
Now, you mentioned there are a few things the government could have done, but realistically, it's outside of the government's hands. How much could the government have pushed on this point, which is outside of the political control, in order to get it?
Well, look, that's a very good question to which I would like to ask the minister those questions in terms of what else could be done that hasn't been done. And in that respect, I can assure you, he would have the support of the opposition. I mean, all we want is some clarity, and it's not me that's asking for the clarity, it's people who ask me the questions and say, well, look, this is damaging our business. When are we going to get off the grey list?
And you mentioned there are a few things, but what could we be doing better from your perspective, from the GST perspective?
Well, this is not a political perspective. This is a view from finance centre, from a gaming company view, from a jurisdiction view, and it is much bigger than the political parties. This is something which we have to work on, and I agree, together, but the minister has to engage with us politically, and it is a political matter, as much as he doesn't like me raising it, but the fact of the matter, he is the minister responsible. I have a responsibility in Parliament for those who expect me to ask these questions. I'm not in Parliament to satisfy my personal curiosity. I'm there to ask those questions that people want answered, and people want this question answered. Where are we? How are we going to get there?
And importantly, what are the effects this is having on the jurisdiction? I mean, it's another year, October 2024.
No, 23.
23 will be the next
window.
Yeah, the
next window. I mean, the problem with this is the longer we're on the grey list, the longer the effects will be. And the problem is when entities outside Gibraltar make decisions as to whether or not they want to do business with Gibraltar, is very difficult to reverse later on. And I've heard anecdotally of people trying to do something as simple as increasing a personal pension contribution, having difficulties with the provider who now suddenly sees Gibraltar on a list, and suddenly that client becomes high risk. I mean, these are the micro effects of being on the grey list. And
perhaps at a crossroads moment, like where we're living now.
I wouldn't like to call it a crossroads moment. I think, look, and I said this back in Viewpoint last year, these are health checks and we need to get through them. They've identified some shortcomings. We need to address them, but we need to address them with urgency. And what I think we need is some clarity as to what the next steps are going to be. And I would like the minister to come to Parliament, make a statement to which we can then ask these questions. I mean, we had Parliament today, but the minister didn't turn up. He had all the time to make a statement, to answer questions which we have tabled, but he hasn't. All he's done is issued a press release accusing me of politicising the issue.